My name's George Tizzard, this is Rick Parkhouse, and we are Red Triangle, production company based in Dorset on the beach. We've been doing this for 6 years. We moved from a little basement studio into the studio we're in today, which took us 2 years to build. And the idea was, if we build it, they might come. So we built the studio thinking that was our sort of gateway into working with bigger acts. And since we moved in here, we've had Ollie Murs, 5 Seconds of Summer, Cheryl's come down. I'm probably missing
Saturdays, Little Mix, Luke Friend, The Vamps. Yeah.
So we are predominantly pop. We can do other things as well, but that's sort of where we've fallen into line, and it seems touch wood to be working at the moment. It's our favourite thing to talk about because we've worked out that working as a pair is far superior to working alone, because it makes the highs higher and the lows more manageable. So when you've got, when we have something that goes right, it's always nice to have someone go, yes, we did something good. Let's go straight to the pub and talk about how great we are. Yeah. And then on the flip side, when it's, you have your many knockbacks, and it just makes it that much easier for someone to sort of sit there and go, no, that's all right, come on, been there before, we'll be there again. So
another thing that I think about it is, that's a really important part, but also the quality control just goes up a notch, because it has to get past 2 sets of sort of censorship before the idea, even comes out. So I think that's a really important part of it, especially because we like different styles of music. And so if we both really like what we've created, then I think it's more likely to go on to be more widely appreciated.
And also when we come to writing, you don't always have a good day. So it's very rare that we'll both have a bad day. Occasionally we'll both have a good day, but it's nice to sort of feel safe in the fact that, okay, if it's not working today, then at least Rick can hold up the session and carry on, and we're not going to waste the day, or we're not going to come out with nothing. So.
And mixing, having another set of ears, George is quite often sort of lining up the next bit of work whilst I'm working away on something. You get really so absorbed in it that it's it's nice to have him just wander back in with fresh ears and go, oh, it's too wet, that you need to dry that up, or that's not punchy enough, or and that is really invaluable, that's because you forget to take I forget to take breaks, and you can so easily lose lose sight of things, but having another set of ears constantly on the same project is invaluable as well.
So it's good to have 2.
Good. 2 is good. I think it's an amazingly important part of writing these days. Mixing is an important part of production these days, because quite often when you're in the very early process of writing, you don't really have very much to go on. You've got some chords and maybe a drum beat, and the way that you mix and process that drum beat can give, I hate to use the word, but give the other people in the room a vibe. And it could be as simple as really dirty drums, and everybody's like, oh yeah, that sounds great, and it gets everybody excited. And so I think that mixing as you go along is very important. And I also think it's part of the reason that people get demoitis, is ideas that you throw together really quickly in the production process to kind of just get things moving, then stick, and they have a certain magic about them that might be what led to the whole song being created, that then if you try and polish that up too much, it disappears. So we're just going to talk you through a little trick that we use to give a bit of life and sort of dynamic to programmed drums. We just automate the top filter here on the Sonnox EQ. So we enable the automation on that. And what we tend to do is in our verse, we'll dull the drums down a little bit. Everything underneath sort of 8K will stay, and we'll just take the sparkle off the drums, but you still have the punch and everything. And it has the effect of, so you see here the filter's engaged during the verse.
Pull it down further just to show, just to show what it's doing.
And then, yeah, so I'll keep it held here, building verse 2.5, and then you'll see the filter just disengage for the chorus. Brings all the top end sparkle back, as if the live drummer was sort of digging into the cymbals a bit more.
Into it.
And it just helps give you contrast, little bit of light and shade between your, your verse and chorus. And it's quite, we had it quite extreme there, but you can dial it. 8K seems to be the magic number, doesn't it? So that it's not too dark in the verses, but you just sort of feel it almost like a...
We've put it across a whole drum bus before on a whole song as well, and just used, say, like tambourines or something like that to actually just give a bit of light where the rest of the drums feel quite dark and quite moody. We were talking about this earlier in the fact that the Sonnox stuff has got a really classy feel to it, because the amount you're actually doing to that, it looks like it's going to make a real difference and it's actually going to be quite harsh. But in something like this is what you need to actually poke it through in a mix.
I bypass that.
So it's completely changing the sound.
But in a really smooth and classy way. I was talking earlier about the multi-bus stuff we've done. So when we finished, got our rough balances, what we'll do is we'll bus in a very sort of systematic way to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 buses. So we've got 8 separate stereo buses, each with their own 48-bit master fader on. And the reason we do that is firstly so we can process the buses. Like here we've got an inflator on all our basses, so we've got several bass synths and a live bass running, and we're processing that whole bus with inflator. So our synths, we're just ducking a little bit of 3K out there, so they don't compete with the vocal, but that's across the entire synth bus. Maybe there's a sort of a build up there that we weren't liking.
We find it actually, which we probably won't show you because we haven't got anything on this track, but with gang vocals, anything we do in our big room, there's a certain frequency that builds up. And the great thing with the Sonnox stuff is it's sort of so precise that we know the frequency it is, so we can literally go in and just notch it out of
notch it out across each individual track. Particularly with things like, we're talking about this with the suppressor. In pop, you tend to stack a lot of vocals, and whilst you might not want to treat an individual vocal, by the time you've got 16, 18, 20, 24 tracks of vocals, whatever it is, the frequencies can pile up, and you end up having to EQ quite radically to stop them getting harsh, and the suppressor is really useful for that. If you use the suppressor on individual vocal tracks, that really helps those frequencies to stop piling up in a harsh way.
So Rick's now going to talk you through our patented reverb trick that we promised we didn't see somewhere else online and do our own version of.
We were just thinking about ways that we use the Sonnox reverb, and something that I think would be quite fun to go through is how we sometimes print the return of the reverb once we've played around with it and automated it.
Show the finished article first.
Yeah, so this is a pre-chorus to a song, and basically what's happening is the pre-chorus is getting wetter and wetter and wetter, and we're riding up the decay time of the reverb on the Sonnox, but then we've actually printed the reverb so that we can cut the tail dead as it goes into the chorus. So.
Or use it for something else.
And it dries up completely for the chorus. So here's the Oxford reverb. And basically we've got it on a hall setting. For this particular effect, it doesn't really matter too much. Just as wet and kind of splashy as you want it. And then we've enabled the automation on the reverb time there. And so if I put that out of the main mix and I'll solo that. Oh, I forgot to say, we actually bounced, in order to do this, we bounced the entire pre-chorus down as a section of audio. and then we're putting the reverb on as an insert, 100% wet. So the pre itself, remains unaffected. So this is just the reverb as on its own. You see, as the pre-chorus goes on, the reverb's getting longer and longer and longer.
It's just giving atmosphere and space and air
and then it goes on to a really long tail there. And the reason we've then basically sent that to a bus. We've got a bus here set up, stereo effects print, and recorded it onto another track. And the reason to do that is a couple of reasons. In this case, we want to cut the reverb dead, and we could probably automate a mute or something, but more often than not, we actually want to cut into the reverb itself and make and manipulate it in different ways. And I think having it as audio just enables you to process it a little bit differently. One of the things that we've done to this, just to clean up, because we want more of the effect than we want, all the mud going into it. And something that we find really useful on the Oxford, it's got all the LF roll-off built into it. And so, we've cranked that quite high, so we're not getting much of the low frequency information, it's more of the high stuff. I mean, one of the reasons that we're loving the Oxford reverb is having the equalizer built in. We're not doing anything in particular on this because we're doing the LF roll-off, but one of the things that I was doing constantly before we discovered the Oxford reverb is I was using the Sonnox EQ on our reverb returns, and then to discover this with this built in, it's just really nice to have it all in one place, because we were constantly tweaking it. You don't often want a really broadband reverb. You want it sometimes quite nice and tight, focused in the sort of mid-rangey area, so that it doesn't get in the way of other things. And having this to hand, which is a really powerful EQ in its own right, built into the plugin, just was a really nice touch, and something that we're using all the time now. So it's great.
Streaming music services, I don't know if you think, but I'm sure you do. I think it's a really good thing, because I think it's going to enable the future of music to regulate how music's distributed and used, and hopefully then some of the money that's generated from it can filter back to people like us, because our producer royalties and things like that, they're kind of non-existent anymore, unless it's a huge, massive selling thing. On something we did recently, we were told that for every one legal download, there was 7 illegal downloads, and it was, although, we take it because we're in this business, and this is what we want to do, and we love doing it. We're very privileged to actually have the opportunity to work in it. Actually, it does frustrate you.
Something else that you always say is it's an education thing, because I think that if you make your living selling music that you've created, then the cracks thing and cracked software is a really pertinent issue. There's no way that you should ever be using cracked software if you make a living making music, because it's so hypocritical. How can you ever expect people to stop downloading stuff for free if you won't pay for the products that enable you to make your living? And so I think it's a big kind of cycle, and I think it's really important that people who are engaged in this professionally, everybody in fact, pays for their plugins and pays for their music. We have a little Neve 1073 preamp. The tube tech sort of does the heavy lifting, so to speak. So that's the frequency we're trying to get rid of. The plugins are
Sounds very expensive.
Yeah, it sounds expensive. They're like top quality plugins.